Good morning, children. Sai Ram. Welcome to our revision class of Standard 7, first chapter, that is Tracing Changes Through 1,000 Years. Now, children, we will first refresh the content which we already have covered during our explanation class. But before we start, please take your notepads and pens so that you can jot down the important points in this chapter. So, now let us see what all we are going to cover in this class. So, children, we will first begin with the medieval period. Then we are going to see the new and old terminologies, after which we will revise about historians and their sources. Then we will also revise about new social and political groups. So, children, now let us begin with the medieval history or the medieval era. So, let us first understand what is medieval period or what is medieval era. Okay. The period that lies between ancient and the modern periods of history is known as the middle or medieval period. In India, the medieval or the middle period stretched from the beginning of the 8th and the end of the 18th century. Now, children, this period is divided into two periods. Medieval era is divided into two periods. Okay. Children, the medieval period is divided into early medieval period and late medieval period. So, basically it is divided into two periods. The early medieval period stretched from the 8th to the 13th century. Children, the late medieval period lasted from the 13th to the 18th century. Children, as we have already learned, maps are one of the important sources of history through which we can trace our historical changes and context. The skilled people who make maps are called the cartographers. Children, the map of Indian subcontinent made by the Arab geographer Al-Idrisi in the year 1154 CE was different from the map made by the French cartographer in 1720. The science of cartography differs according to different historical backgrounds. Now, look at this picture. This is a picture of the map from your textbook, that is your NCERT textbook. Now, this is the Al-Idrisi's map. The map drawn by Al-Idrisi. Now, let us understand how it is different from the map which we follow today. So, children, in Al-Idrisi's map, South India is where we would expect to find North India, and Sri Lanka is the island at the top. Can you see this? This is Sri Lanka, okay, but in Al-Idrisi's map it is shown at the top. Now, look at this map. This is the map drawn by the French cartographer, okay, but this map is quite similar to the map that we see nowadays. This is also from your NCERT history textbook. So, children, this map was drawn in the 1720s, that is nearly 600 years after the map 1, during which the time information about the continent had changed considerably. This map is more familiar to us. If you see children, the coastal sides or the coastal areas of this map are detailed. This map was mostly used by the European sailors and merchants on their voyages. This we will see in detail in the 6th chapter. Now children, let us revise new and old terminologies. Children, historical records exist in a variety of languages which have changed over the period. We all know that the term Hindustan was used by Minhaj-e-Siraj, a chronicler who wrote in Persian in the 13th century, which meant that the areas of Punjab, Haryana and the lands between Ganga and Yamuna. So basically, when he mentioned the term Hindustan, what he actually meant was the areas of Punjab, Haryana and the lands between Ganga and Yamuna. So it was used in a political sense for lands forming the parts of the area of Delhi Sultanate. In the early 16th century, Babur used the term Hindustan to describe the geography, the fauna and the culture of the inhabitants of the subcontinent. Amir Khusrau also used the term Hind in the 14th century. The idea of a geographical and cultural entity like India did exist, but the term Hindustan did not carry the political and national meanings like what we use now for India. The word foreigner is used to mean someone who is not an Indian, but in the medieval period it was used for a person who was not a part of a particular society or culture. So children, in Hindi, the term Pardesi might be used to describe such a person, and in Persian, Ajnabi. Children, a city dweller therefore might have been regarded a forest dweller as a foreigner, but two peasants living in the same village were not foreigners to each other, even though they may have had different religious or caste background. Now children, let us revise the sources available to the historians for the study of the past. Archaeological evidences. There were coins, inscription, architecture, that is forts, tombs and temples, paintings. Can you see this picture children? This is a picture of coins, picture of manuscripts and temple carvings. Now let us see what the literary evidences were. Letters, teachings of saints, manuscripts, petition and judicial orders or records, holy text, chronicles of ruler. Historians use many available resources to study and analyze the past events. Among these, the common sources are coins, inscriptions, architectures and textual records. There was a dramatic increase in the variety of textual records during the period between 700 to 1750. Paper became widely available and cheaper. It was used in the writing of the holy text, chronicles of rulers, letters and teaching of cents, petitions and judicial records, and for registers of accounts and taxes. Now let us understand the use of paper for writing the manuscripts. Children, as we have learned in the while explanation of the chapter that the manuscripts were collected from wealthy people, rulers, monasteries and temples. They were placed in libraries and archives. Historians use them for detailed information. There were no printing press at that time. So, scribes used to copy down manuscripts by hand. Very often, scribes introduced small changes, and over the years, the manuscripts of same text became substantially different from another. These manuscripts and documents were rich and vital sources of information for the historians, but they were difficult to use. Scribes copied manuscripts by hand. Now let us understand the difficulties historians faced in using manuscripts. Scribes introduced numerous changes in the manuscripts while copying because of less legible handwriting, personal biases, misinterpretation and exaggeration of facts. Now children, let us refresh this context. I hope you must all be remembering that we had already covered it during the explanation of the chapter. So, as there were no printing press in those days, we all know that scribes copied manuscripts by hand. But children, if you have ever copied a friend's homework, you would come to know that this is not a simple exercise. Sometimes you cannot read your friend's handwriting and therefore you are forced to guess what the writing is or what the written content is. As a result, there are small but significant difference in the copy of your and your friend's work. Manuscript copying is somewhat similar. Now, can you see this picture, children? This is a picture from your history textbook. If you see it carefully, you will understand the different kinds of handwriting that could make a reading of Persian and Arabic difficult. So children, so small but significant changes grew over centuries of copying until manuscripts of same text became substantially different from another. Interesting facts, okay, about the chronicler whose name was Ziauddin Barani. He wrote his first chronicle in the year 1356, and 2 years later he wrote the second version. Now both these versions were different from each other, and the historians were not aware about this till the 1960s, and it remained lost in the large library collections. So children, I hope all the things that were discussed today are clear with you. I would request you to go through the videos, the chapter, read the chapters, read the subtopics, read the points that you must have jotted down. You can also go through the revision video that you have, so that it will be easier for you to answer the questions in the exam. Now children, again I would like to remind you, last year also it was told to you, anything can come from anywhere within the lesson. So it is very important for you all to be thorough with the chapter. So with this I end this class. See you in the part 2 of this chapter. Till then, goodbye and take care.